Mars entered Cancer retrograde back in January. The planet turned direct on February 23rd, and now, mid April, Mars is preparing to finally move on to Leo on April 17th. I feel like this has been probably the most complex and the most emotional Mars transit that we've had in a while. So, as Mars wraps up this time in Cancer, we can ask ourselves some questions. And I think that these reflections can really help us to sort of solidify our progress. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here with these 7 reflections for the end of Mars in Cancer. I set up a little video here that we can sort of move through as we go. Okay, so the first question, the first reflection that you can be asking yourself at this time is, where did I feel emotionally reactive? Mars retrograde in Cancer is an intense placement. Mars has a challenging time in Cancer. Those energies don't necessarily go together. Cancer is quite protective, quite emotional, family-oriented, nurturing. And Mars can be those things as well, especially when in Cancer, but with a planet ruling things such as motivation, action, drive, will, energy, other signs and houses are more comfortable for Mars. So because there was a retrograde cycle, Mars was here for 4 months. And there may have been some emotional reactivity that this signifies that could have shown up for some of us. So it can bring emotional flare-ups a time like this. And it might not just be emotional flare-ups for you. You might have seen others flare up as well and be reactive. I love the idea of when challenges arise, trying to be first responders, to be responders, not reactors. And I do think of that as sort of the way first responders come into an emergency, level-headed, calm, bringing peace, expertise, guidance, stability to a hectic scene. Not an easy thing, much easier to be reactive. And I think whatever challenges arise for us, sometimes anyone can lean towards that reactivity. But paying attention to where it showed up for you and where it showed up for others can sort of show you something about triggers that you have and triggers that others have, and what still needs healing. Okay. Sorry, taking a sip of water here as well. Okay, the second reflection is a bit similar, but it's a bit different as well. Where did emotional wounds resurface during this time? And why now? And just again, to be, not to go over it too much, but this could have been happening for the last 4 months, or really perhaps even a little bit longer, because before the retrograde cycle began, Mars spent some time in Cancer as well. So Mars has been in Cancer this visit since January, since very early January. But Mars was there in October and November as well, I believe. Let's see, I believe I have those dates. Yeah, in the fall for sure. I don't want to spend too much time digging through to find that, but the story could even go back a bit further than that. So it's a long story we're talking about here, but I think focusing on the last 4 months is a good way to think about it. All of these planets retrograde. We didn't just have a Mars retrograde this winter. We followed that up with the Mercury retrograde that just ended, which is very common. There are many Mercury retrogrades. That's not extraordinary. But we also are having a Venus retrograde cycle right around the same time as the Mars. And Mars actually right now is connecting with Venus retrograde. So it's sort of been a lot with all of these personal planets going inward. And so that's part of the reason why some of these old wounds might resurface. There may be things coming up for healing right now that are very old. And so it's an interesting time to think about why is it in your life that those wounds are being uh, ignited, that they're being irritated. Why would now be the right time to heal them? Why do you need to let go of that thing? What will it clear for you if you're able to heal these old wounds a little bit? Again, I think especially with the Venus retrograde being a part of this, and with Mars in Cancer retrograde, unresolved pains can be really stirred. And that can teach you something. That can teach us something. Why was it stirred up? And how was it stirred up? And were you able to heal some of those wounds that were stirred up? Why does that feel important right now? What does that open up going forward? Were you able to let go of that pain in the end? Were you able to forgive and let go of blaming others? Were you able to let go of any self-blame that you might have still been holding on to? This is another good reflection for this time. Okay, let's move forward to number 3. Where did I feel safe enough to be vulnerable? Where and with who? Again, working with this Venus retrograde at the same time, it's interesting how this shines a light on vulnerability and on relationships. And it shines a light on the importance of vulnerability in relationships. The only way for you to really be in a relationship, for you to really be in a relationship with anyone, not romantic, but literally with anyone at work, family members, friends, is to trust enough to kind of relax and be yourself and show and tell how you're really feeling. Take down the mask at least a little bit, if not kind of all the way, and go into that authentic self-expression. But the only way to really truly represent yourself authentically is to have a certain level of self-worth, a certain level of self-trust and confidence that you're okay. And so you can go into these places and allow for some vulnerability by being who you really are, because if it's not a fit for some reason, that's okay. It won't be too hard for you. And again, whether that's a job, a relationship, a new neighborhood, whatever situation this might be, the vulnerability allows life to come in, and it allows relationships to come in. It allows support to come in, right? If you are catching up with an old friend for lunch and you're just trying to represent yourself well, you're trying to impress them or something. And we've all had experiences with others where that's what was going on. And I'm sure we've all done it ourselves as well. You don't really get to the heart of things. No one's really able to connect in an authentic way. At the same time, that said, not everyone is safe to be vulnerable around, right? Some people do see vulnerability and see weakness. Some people are looking to take advantage of weaknesses that they spot in you, or places where you disclose a lot about what matters to you. Not everyone handles that well, and not everyone treats everyone kindly all the time. And so learning And being discerning about where we're vulnerable, I think, is an important part of this cycle too. So paying attention to where in the last 4 months did you feel really safe to be yourself? Did you feel really safe to be vulnerable and show up completely and authentically as you? And what did that feel like? And what did you receive back? And then in what places weren't you able to do that at all, where it wasn't safe? And just sort of taking in and processing what that says about all the relationships, about relationship patterns, about how you really feel deep down. And, we have to be discerning. We have to be vulnerable where it's safe, but we have to be discerning and do that where it's safe and right to do it. Okay, let's move on to our fourth reflection of 7 for things to reflect on just these few days here as we're wrapping up this time with Mars and Cancer after 4 months. All right, what boundaries needed renovation? So, with Mars and Cancer, it can help us sort of discover and express our limits, and it helps others to do the same, right? Because everyone's going through this transit at the same time. And I'm wording that funny. It signifies that we're doing it. It's not causing it. I think that can be some feel a misconception about astrology that um, it's causing somehow these events, or that astrologers believe that the movement of the planets is causing these things to happen. No, it's that hermetic axiom, the idea of as above, so below, that we're all much more connected than we seem, right? We're all waves in an ocean. We're all leaves on one tree. And so what's happening with the planets signifies something about what's happening for us. So it's not that Mars and Cancer is causing this to go on for us, causing us to work with boundaries. It's that Mars and Cancer signifies working with boundaries. And here we are working with boundaries because the planet's going through it. We're going through it. We're all together. We're all waves in the ocean, the planets and us. I always enjoy that image of, I believe it was an old sort of Alan Watts speech where he spoke about how if you were to sort of back up and look at the earth through time, it would look sort of as though the earth sort of peoples the way that an apple tree apples, right? We did actually spring from the earth. We are actually connected to the earth, whatever you believe about religion and spirituality. And so we are the earth, and the earth sprang from other things. So, anyway, huge tangent. Forgive. But I just wanted to say that about astrology. I do think it's important. It's not that Mars retrograde makes us blah, blah, blah. And I just use language like that. And that's really not the way that I see it, or the way that most astrologers that I've met anyway see it. We're all going through the same things. So anyway, with Mars and Cancer, it signifies that we've been able to find and express our limits in a different way. And with us doing that and others doing that, it might have been a time these last 4 months where some boundaries shifted, where some things shifted and changed. So it's interesting to take stock of that now. Where have some relationship patterns shifted and changed? Are there how do you feel about that? We still have some time here to sort of move that. Are there places where maybe you're still a little bit too enmeshed and you can untie that a bit? Do you want to make sure to hold any boundaries that are really working for you? And if they're new, that can be difficult because it's a new phenomenon. Although I think Mars and Leo signifies that we're going to have some real confidence going forward. I'll just talk just for a quick second at the end about Mars and Leo. It's a really different signature. But yeah, no matter how you cut it, when something is new, a new practice, it can be a little bit hard, a little bit difficult to hold. So being conscious of what you're doing with these boundaries going forward can be helpful. Okay, let's move this ahead. Oop, okay, caught it. Almost went too far. Okay, number 5, what long-standing pattern showed up for healing? And this could be, when I say long-standing pattern, I don't even mean long-standing pattern in your life. I mean something old. It could be something really old, an old family pattern, or is something in sort of your ancestral line, something that is societal that you were programmed for. What long-standing patterns like that were you able to really examine during the last few months? And again, it's interesting to notice why those wounds would be clearing right now. What does that allow for? What does that open up? And just keeping in mind that these wounds are very, very deep. When we heal something that's so deep, that is part of our programming from when we were children, whether through family, society, if it's part of almost our genetics, it's so hardwired, and our experience, our lived experience, then it can be so difficult to heal. And any healing should really be celebrated. Any forward movement and progress is huge progress. And if and when you really are able to break long-standing patterns like this, it's absolutely remarkable. Not everyone does, not everyone has been able to think all the way back and how others weren't. So just really celebrating any progress that was made, places where you're able to do it differently than you were taught to do it. Places where once you were almost on autopilot and now you see it completely differently and you're not on that autopilot anymore. You know, it can be all sorts of things about the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, the way you see your role in the world, the way you see relationships or friendships or work or any kind of abundance, whether it's health or can be appearance related things. All kinds of different things can surface at this time for healing, and they can be cleared at this time. It can often be sort of some family stuff. The reason that I was leaning toward these family words is that with Mars and Cancer, that can signify family related themes. So it could have been that for you as well with this. Just looking at my notes, I feel like there might have been something else I wanted to say about this. Just to give yourself so much credit. Yeah, and to realize that's what it was. I knew there was one other thing. To realize sometimes that these wounds didn't start with you, right? To think about this pattern that you unpacked, that you know is connected far back through your ancestry or that you learned through society, and just to give yourself credit for the fact that it didn't start with you. You're healing it, and that's amazing. You're making progress and improving on whatever this is, and that's incredible. And also the fact that give yourself credit for the fact that it didn't start with you. It's not your fault. You need to do something about it now, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was your fault, right? You're the one to heal with it. You're the one who's living with it, but it didn't necessarily start with you, and that matters. It can let us off the hook a little bit in a way that can be healing. Okay, number 6, where did I fight behind the scenes? Mars and Cancer can be very, very protective. So the fighting is definitely a Mars and Cancer idea, and fighting for someone else for sure. And Mars and Cancer can be a little bit private too. So it might be interesting to examine where those energies of sort of being protective and being private combined and showed up for you, because it might just indicate something about what Mars and Cancer was trying to teach you, where that light was being, where that flashlight, where that spotlight was pointing, at places where you really felt the need to do something. Mars in Cancer energy is quite internal, and it can be hard to find the motivation and the movement at this time. So places where you did that quietly, where you did it behind the scenes, don't forget to notice them, because they matter too. And it says something about what you were meant to learn and heal and work through during this time. That's actually a great lead in to number 7 here. And don't go away at the end of number 7, because this all does connect really to a Mars and Pluto thing that I want to talk about at the end that I really think is important. And I'm not just saying that. I know sometimes people say that to get people to stick around, but it really is significant with this. Okay, but let's talk about number 7 first, because this is a big one. I think it's the most important one. When I felt like giving up, what kept me going? Because with Mars retrograde, especially in Cancer, motivation, energy, drive, even confidence can be really greatly reduced. It's interesting to notice where we continued to move forward. When our energy was at the lowest, when things were the hardest, what we were still able and willing to push forward on, what we still cared about, where we still found that drive and energy to keep going, what kept us going. It says a lot about what we care about most. So I think that's a great reflection for this time as well. And I just wanted to say, I'm going to hit play on this because I set up just a little visual with some hearts as we're working our way towards the end of the video here. Thank you very much for being here. And as Mars leaves Cancer and enters Leo on April 17th, this is a big shift. Mars in Leo is totally different. It's bold and expansive. But here's the thing. As Mars enters Leo, it will oppose Pluto fairly newly in Aquarius. And this is a part of a larger story. It will, I'll be talking more about it as we go, but I did want to say that the Mars-Pluto opposition will absolutely activate sort of any of this emotional groundwork that we were talking about here today. Any work that we did during or didn't do during the Mars retrograde cycle, it could be, the boundary shifts, the internal battles, the defense mechanisms. It could be that those foundations are sort of stimulated, activated as Mars goes into Leo and is opposed by Pluto. And we get to experience something about those foundations. So any work that we're doing right now is really going to serve us as we move forward. Because like, as I was talking about with, it's like the way I was talking about how the work that we're doing now, why were you doing it? What is it opening up? What is it leading towards? We might be about to find that out. And you might see, oh, I'm so glad that I cleared that. I'm so glad that I worked on it. I really needed that to happen in order to get to this point. Things are moving forward. They really are. We're coming out of a super significant and active time astrologically, and things are different now. It's almost like the lights being turned on at the end of a night after a long party and things look really different now. But it's not that. It's more like the dawn of a new day. And the seasons have changed and things look different than they did before. Somehow nature doesn't change that quickly, but it's been a really active astrological period. Anyway, there's a lot going on right now. In addition to this, Venus is turning direct. I will link to a video about that. We just had last night a wonderful full moon in Libra. I'll link to a video about that. If you enjoyed this video, you would probably enjoy those too. Remember that any healing or reflective work that you're doing right now will probably serve you as Mars moves into Leo and as we continue to move forward. And thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it very much. Have a great day. I'll be back.